The day my daughter tried to retire me like an old toaster. I put on my crimson suit. My name is Eleanor Brooks. 66. Born and stubborn in Maple Ridge, Ohio. Yesterday at 3:07 p.m. My phone pinged with a voice note from my daughter. Vanessa, meant for her husband, Sebastian, but delivered to me by the sweet, incompetent mercy of technology. I pressed play, expecting grocery lists or a cute, "Love you, Mom." What poured into my kitchen was cold enough to frost the windows. Ricardo, I can't take having my mother in this house anymore. She's a nuisance. I found a place that's $800 a month. And I talked to Monica at the county clerk's office. There's a way to transfer the deed. Mom won't even notice. The mug slipped from my hand and shattered. Chamomile bled into the grout like a small, polite crime scene. The words kept coming: my house, my name, their plan, and then her laugh. Bright and careless as loose change in a dryer. If you've ever felt a betrayal so profound your bones go quiet, you'll understand how I stood there, listening to my only child map out my disappearance as if she were booking a weekend getaway. They thought I wouldn't notice, that I'd shuffle along behind their whispers, nodding at their "Mom, you're confused" speeches and their "let us help with your bills" charity, while they slowly rearranged my life like furniture they were about to sell. I raised Vanessa on early buses and late-night overtime, scrubbing the stories of other families out of their carpets so mine could have a future. I paid her tuition with the last of my mother's pearls and the first lines of my calluses. I even fed Sebastian's ambition when it arrived on my doorstep wearing a tie 2 sizes too enthusiastic. I replayed the message. Then again. Around the 4th time, I stopped crying and started planning. There is a temperature your heart reaches, just past heartbreak, where the steel sets. That's where I was when I opened my closet and reached for the crimson pantsuit I wore the day Vanessa graduated. Back then I'd cried because life was opening for her. Last night I zipped it up because life was opening for me. I slept exactly 0 minutes, which turns out to be the perfect amount when you're done being reasonable. At 5 a.m., I curled my hair, dusted on blush, alive, but not desperate, was the vibe, and chose the pearl earrings my mother left me, the ones that felt like a promise. I slipped my social security card, passport, insurance policy, deed copy, and the very phone containing my daughter's confession into my leather tote. On the kitchen table I left a 9-word note: went out early, taking care of me today. Mom. The air outside bit at my cheeks as I locked the door that I had paid for, brick by brick, shift by shift, decade by decade. The map of the morning was already drawn in my head: bank first, county clerk second, attorney third. Humor still lives in the ruins. By the way, on the drive I actually chuckled picturing Sebastian practicing his concerned son-in-law face in the mirror. Bless his heart, Ohio idiom for no thank you. At 7:58 a.m., I stood at Maple Ridge Trust and Savings behind a young man ordering an iced vanilla latte, with oat milk and a dash of midlife crisis. His words, not mine. The doors swung open at 8 o'clock sharp. I walked straight to the desk of Nora, the branch manager who has watched me deposit tiny victories for 15 years, tax returns, refund checks, the occasional rolled jar of quarters that smelled like every grocery aisle in town. Morning, Ms. Brooks, she said, kind but efficient. What can we do for you? I put the tote on her desk like a lawyer slamming down a case file in a courtroom drama and, for the first time in months, let my voice sit in its full height. Nora, I need a complete audit of inquiries and authorizations on my accounts for the last 6 months. I also need to change every password, freeze third-party access, and update beneficiaries, right now. Her eyebrows climbed. Of course. Is everything? Everything, I said, is about to get honest. While she typed, my phone vibrated once. Vanessa. I flipped it over. Not today, sweetheart. Today your mother is busy being competent. Nora clicked, frowned, then clicked again. Her mouth flattened into a line I recognized from church ladies about to tell you how it really is. Ms. Brooks, there are multiple logins from an external device and a signed letter on file authorizing access by Vanessa Brooks. My skin went cool. There is no such letter. I said evenly, not with my signature. Nora turned her monitor so I could see the scan. A neat diagonal script that looked like mine if mine had learned bad manners. She printed it, slid me the paper, and handed over a ballpoint pen. I steadied the page with fingers that no longer shook. "Shall I flag it as potential fraud?" Nora asked. I studied the slanted, eager imitation of my name, the way it tried to be me and missed. My laugh came out low and surprised, like a door opening on oiled hinges. "Flag it," I said, and then, "Please bring me the original. Because the very first thing I'm going to do today is prove this is not my hand." When Nora returned from the vault, she wasn't alone, and the person walking in behind her could either bury me or blow my daughter's entire plan to pieces. When Nora came back from the records vault, she wasn't alone. Behind her trailed Mr. Deacon, the bank's compliance officer, a man whose wardrobe consisted entirely of beige suits and whose eyebrows could out-arch the Golden Gate. He held a file so thick it looked like it could double as a doorstop. "Ms. Brooks," he said, voice low and serious, "we take forgery extremely seriously. I'd like you to review this original document before we proceed." He slid the folder across the polished desk like it was a loaded gun. I flipped it open and there it was, my name. Bent and crooked into someone else's ambition. Not only had Vanessa forged my signature, but she'd also attached a copy of my driver's license, badly photocopied. Like she'd tried to wrestle my life onto paper and it resisted. "Do you confirm this isn't your handwriting?" Deacon asked. I looked him dead in the eye. "If that's my handwriting, then I'm Elvis Presley." Nora covered a laugh with a cough. Beige suit didn't crack a smile, but I swear I saw his pen twitch. "Very well," he said, making notes. "We'll lock your accounts and file this under fraud investigation. No further access will be granted without your physical presence and 2 forms of ID." Finally, steel bars on the vault of my life. "Good," I said, straightening. "Now, I'd like to transfer every cent into a new account, today." For the next 30 minutes, I signed papers with my actual hand. "Thank you very much," while Nora helped me move my $8.750 savings into an account only I could touch. We changed my online banking password to something so long and ridiculous even I had to write it down. Hint, it involved 3 pies, a cow, and the phrase, "Not today, Vanessa." When Nora printed my new statements, I tucked them into my tote alongside my pearls and passport. Then I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "Nora, one more thing. If anyone else comes in here claiming to be me, you call the police first. Then call me. Understood?" Nora gave me a firm nod. "You've got it." As I walked out of the bank into the sharp Ohio morning, my phone buzzed again. "Vanessa, second missed call in an hour." Desperation already creeping in, or just making sure the old woman hadn't wandered off? I let it ring. The next stop was the Maple County Clerk's office, where my niece, Monica, worked. The same Monica who, according to Vanessa's oh-so-charming voice memo, was going to help transfer the house to their names. I pushed through the glass doors at exactly 10:05. The lobby smelled like old paper and burnt coffee. A poster on the wall chirped, "Public service with integrity," and I nearly snorted out loud. The receptionist, a young man whose hair was losing the war against gravity, asked, "Do you have an appointment?" "I don't," I said, smiling sweetly, "but tell Monica Hall that her Aunt Eleanor is here. And tell her I brought family business." He looked spooked enough to type like his keyboard might bite him. Moments later, Monica appeared in the doorway, her smile tight as a stapler. "Aunt Eleanor, what a surprise," she said, voice sugary enough to rot teeth. But her eyes darted to my tote bag, like she already knew trouble was zipped inside. I matched her smile, inch for inch. "Monica, darling, let's talk somewhere private." Because the moment Monica shut her office door, I planned to drop a recording on her desk that would make her regret ever spelling my name wrong on stolen paperwork. Monica's office was as bland as her personality: beige walls, dusty blinds, a half-dead plant on the filing cabinet struggling for one last sip of water. She gestured toward a chair, but I stayed standing. "Power sits better on your feet." "So," she began, fussing with a stack of papers, To what do I owe this surprise visit? I unzipped my tote slowly, like I was unholstering a revolver in an old western. You tell me, Monica, because according to my daughter, you've been very helpful. Her cheeks twitched. I don't know what you mean. Click. I tapped my phone screen, and the room filled with Vanessa's voice. Also, I've already checked the house papers. It's in her name, but I found a way to transfer it to ours. My cousin Monica at the clerk's office is going to help me. I pressed pause right before Vanessa's laugh. Silence swallowed the room whole. Monica's face drained of color like someone had pulled her plug. Aunt Eleanor, she stammered. It's not what it sounds like. I leaned forward, pearl earrings catching the dull office light. Sweetheart, it's exactly what it sounds like. Forged documents, property theft, elder abuse, words that carry jail time. She sank into her chair, clutching the armrests as if they could anchor her. Vanessa told me you were confused. She said you wanted to move into assisted living, and this was just helping you. I laughed, sharp as a cracked plate. Does this look like confusion to you, Monica? Because I feel crystal clear. Her eyes darted to the closed door. She lowered her voice. Please, Auntie, don't report me. I've got 3 kids. I can't lose this job. Then help me undo every shred of paperwork you touched. I said flatly, right now, or tomorrow morning you'll be explaining your creative filing system to a judge. For a second, I thought she might argue, but then her shoulders slumped like laundry off a line. Fine, I'll show you everything. Just promise you won't ruin me. I smiled without warmth. Oh, honey, you did that all by yourself. I'm just here to make sure you don't ruin me too. She pulled a hidden folder from her bottom drawer, hands trembling. Inside were copies of deeds, affidavits, even a fake medical note declaring me mentally unfit to manage affairs. My name scrawled across every page like graffiti. You'll give me copies, I said, holding out my hand. All of it. She obeyed, sliding the stack across her desk. My phone was recording the whole interaction. Every word. Insurance. When I zipped my tote shut again, it felt heavier, not with paper, but with power. I straightened my crimson jacket. Thank you, Monica. You've been more helpful than you'll ever know. Now, go get yourself another job. Maybe something that doesn't involve pens. Her lip quivered. What are you going to do? I turned toward the door, heels clicking on the linoleum like a clock counting down. Next stop? An attorney. And trust me, Monica, when this goes to court, you'll want to be on my side of the witness stand. Because the man waiting in the corner office downtown, Attorney Daniel Harris, was about to take my little pile of evidence and turn it into the guillotine hanging over my daughter's head. The law office of Daniel Harris, attorney at law, smelled like leather, ambition, and expensive coffee. His name was etched in brass on the door, the kind of lettering that said, "If you're lying, don't even bother knocking." I stepped inside, clutching my tote like a soldier carrying classified intel. The receptionist gave me the once-over, crimson suit, pearls, eyes that hadn't blinked in 2 hours, and decided I wasn't here for small talk. She led me straight back. Attorney Harris stood as I entered. Tall, late 50s, salt and pepper hair that probably cost more to maintain than my monthly grocery bill. His handshake was firm, his gaze sharper than a paper cut. "Ms. Brooks," he said, "Nora from the bank already called. She said you'd need more than account protection." Account protection? I slid the fat folder onto his mahogany desk. "Mr. Harris, I need a full-scale legal exorcism." His brow lifted, intrigued. He opened the folder, scanning Monica's trembling confessions, Vanessa's forged signature, and the audio recording I played for him. With every page he turned, his frown deepened. Finally, he leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "Ms. Brooks, this isn't just a little family squabble. This is premeditated fraud, forgery of legal documents, conspiracy to commit theft, and, given the fake medical reports, potential elder abuse. If you wanted, we could pursue both civil and criminal charges." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. "Then let's pursue hard." He chuckled, the kind of laugh lawyers have when they smell blood in the water. "I like you already. Tell me exactly what outcome you want." I looked him straight in the eye. I want my house safe. My accounts clean. My name cleared. And most of all, I want Vanessa and Sebastian to learn that betraying me was the most expensive mistake of their lives. He grinned. Poetic justice. My favorite kind. For the next hour, he drafted legal complaints while dictating notes to his assistant. Words like fraudulent intent and irrefutable evidence flew around the room like arrows. I sat there, sipping the coffee they offered. And for the first time in months, I wasn't the defendant in my own life, I was the plaintiff. When we finished, Harris tapped the folder. Tomorrow morning, I'll file these with the county court. By then, your daughter and her husband won't know what hit them. And I'll make sure every agency that needs to see this, police, notary, even the property records office, has copies. Their scheme ends here. I stood, gathering my tote. Mr. Harris, you just became my new favorite man. He smirked. Don't tell Sebastian. He'll be jealous. That one earned him a laugh from me, real. Unguarded. Strange how even in betrayal, humor can sneak back in like sunlight through blinds. As I left his office, my phone buzzed again. Vanessa. A text this time. Mom. Where are you? We're worried. Worried. I almost choked on the irony. I typed back 2 words. Don't wait. Because tomorrow morning, when the knock came at my front door, it wouldn't be me answering to my daughter, it would be her answering to the law. The next morning dawned sharp and clear. The kind of Ohio morning where the frost paints lace on the windows and the air tastes like unfinished business. I brewed my coffee extra strong. Not because I needed the caffeine, but because I wanted something hot to hold when the storm broke. At 10 o'clock sharp, my doorbell rang. I already knew who it was, Attorney Harris. 2 police officers, and a notary, the cavalry, disguised in tailored suits and badges. I opened the door with a smile. Good morning, gentlemen, come right in. Grace, no, Vanessa and Sebastian were still in their pajamas on the couch, sipping coffee like it was just another Thursday. When they saw the entourage march in behind me, their mugs froze halfway to their lips. Mom, Vanessa said, her voice brittle. What's going on? Sit, I told her, tone sharper than she'd ever heard from me. Both of you, now. Sebastian smirked like he thought this was some kind of performance. You can't just. Quiet, one of the officers said, his hand resting casually on his belt. Sebastian sat. Attorney Harris opened his briefcase. His voice calm but loaded. Ms. Brooks has provided evidence of multiple crimes, fraud, forgery, attempted property theft, elder abuse. We're here today to present this formally. He laid the first document on the coffee table, Vanessa's fake authorization letter to access my bank accounts. Right beside it, he placed my ID for comparison. Notice the slant, Harris pointed out. The forged signature curves upward. Ms. Brooks's authentic signature slants slightly down. Clear mismatch. I reached into my tote, pulled out my phone, and pressed play. The living room filled with Vanessa's own voice. Ricardo, I can't take having my mother in this house anymore. She's a nuisance. Carol at the clerk's office said she can transfer the papers to our name. Vanessa's face drained so fast I thought she might faint. She lunged for the phone, but one officer stopped her mid-motion. Turn that off, she screamed. No, I said calmly. We're just getting started. The recording went on, her laugh, her plan, her casual mention of my early dementia. When the final words, in a month, Mom will be in the home and we'll own everything, echoed off the walls. The silence was suffocating. Vanessa's hands shook in her lap. Sebastian's jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. Then Harris pulled out the coup de grace, Monica's full-written confession, complete with signatures and timestamps. Vanessa's eyes widened. She betrayed me? Oh, sweetheart, I said, leaning back with my coffee. Betrayal runs in the family, doesn't it? The notary stamped the confession with a loud, satisfying thunk. The sound was final, like a cell door closing. And just when Vanessa thought she could lie her way out of it, Attorney Harris revealed the one piece of evidence that shattered every excuse she had left. Attorney Harris didn't rush. He knew the power of silence, of letting panic spread like smoke before striking the match. Vanessa wrung her hands. Sebastian shifted on the couch. his fake confidence peeling off like cheap paint. Then Harris reached into his briefcase and pulled out a sealed envelope. He slid it across the table with deliberate care. "This," he said, tapping the envelope, "is a certified psychological evaluation of Ms. Eleanor Brooks, conducted yesterday at Maple Ridge General by Dr. Raymond Morales." Vanessa's head snapped up. "What?" "Yes," Harris said smoothly. "Your mother voluntarily underwent a full evaluation. The results?" He pulled out the report. His voice crisp as he read, "Patient is fully competent. Displays excellent memory, reasoning skills superior to average for her age, and no signs of dementia or cognitive decline." He looked straight at Vanessa. "Which proves all of your fabricated medical reports were fraudulent." Sebastian's smirk cracked. "This is ridiculous. She is forgetful. She sometimes puts her keys in the freezer." I raised my eyebrows. "Once. In 1987. And you ate the ice cream I left there. So maybe that was on purpose." One of the officers coughed to hide a laugh. Harris didn't bother. He was already reaching for the next folder. Fraudulent medical records, forged bank authorization, audio evidence of conspiracy. He laid each document down like a card dealer revealing a losing hand. "And finally, financial theft." Vanessa's voice cracked. "No, we never." But Harris was already holding up the bank statements. Multiple unauthorized withdrawals, $500 here, $1.200 there, totaling $8.750 stolen directly from your mother's accounts. I leaned forward, my voice low but steady. That money was for my utilities, my groceries, my life, and instead, you bought new furniture and spa weekends. Sebastian slammed his fist on the coffee table. "We did it for the family." The officer beside him raised an eyebrow. "You mean the family you were trying to steal a house from?" I sipped my coffee. Perfect timing. Vanessa buried her face in her hands. For the first time, the mighty daughter who thought she could outsmart me looked exactly like what she was, a scared child caught red-handed. Harris closed the folder with a snap. "At this point, Ms. Brooks has grounds for both civil and criminal proceedings. The evidence is irrefutable. But before we proceed," he looked at me, "this is your call. Eleanor." The room held its breath. Even I felt the weight of it. One word from me and my daughter would leave this house in handcuffs. I set down my mug. "Proceed," I said. And as the handcuffs clicked shut around Vanessa's wrists, I realized the sound wasn't just metal, it was the end of an illusion I'd lived under for 35 years. The sound of the handcuffs was sharper than I expected, like a steel punctuation mark at the end of a very long, very cruel sentence. "Mom, no," Vanessa shrieked as the officer pulled her arms behind her back. "You can't do this to me, I'm your daughter." I held her gaze, my face calm, my insides trembling like glass. "And you tried to erase me from my own life. Blood doesn't make betrayal hurt less. Sweetheart, it makes it cut deeper." Sebastian jumped to his feet. His face twisted with rage. "This is insane. We're family. You can't just call the cops on us because of a misunderstanding." Attorney Harris gave him a slow smile. "Funny, most misunderstandings don't involve forged legal documents, stolen money, and plans to commit elder fraud. But maybe I'm old-fashioned." The officer turned to Sebastian. "Sir, please sit down." But Sebastian wasn't done playing the tough guy. He leaned across the table, pointing at me with his cuff-free hand. "You'll regret this, old woman. You think you're clever now, but you're destroying your own family." "Correction," I said softly. "I'm saving what's left of it, me." The other officer stepped forward. "Mr. Clark, you're under arrest as well, for conspiracy to commit fraud." Sebastian's bravado drained as the cuffs snapped around his wrists. His face went pale. "This isn't over," he hissed at me. "You'll pay for this." "Oh, honey," I said, leaning back with a smile that tasted like victory. "The only thing I'll be paying for is lunch when this is over." Even the notary chuckled. Vanessa sobbed as the officers guided her toward the door. "Mom, please, don't let them take me. I was desperate, we were drowning in debt. I didn't mean to hurt you." Her words clawed at my chest. But then my memory replayed the recording of her laughter, her cold, Casual mention of my death as not so bad because she'd get the insurance payout. Any pity I might have had shriveled on the spot. I stood tall in my living room, the same one they had turned into their plotting ground, and said the words I never thought I'd say to my own child. Actions have consequences, Vanessa, and today, you finally get yours. The door slammed behind them, leaving my house in a silence so thick I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. It wasn't the silence of defeat anymore. It was the silence of freedom. But freedom, I was about to learn, comes at a price, and my daughter wasn't the kind to go down quietly. For a moment, the quiet was almost holy. My living room, my sanctuary, was mine again. No whispered conversations dying the second I entered. No fake smiles over forced dinners. No one pawing through my bank statements pretending it was help. But peace never comes without echoes. By nightfall, the phone began ringing. The first call came at 11:30 p.m., a blocked number. I answered out of habit. "You miserable old hag," a woman's voice spat, raw with venom. "Rot alone. You deserve it." The line went dead before I could respond. By the second call at 2 a.m., I knew what was happening. Vanessa wasn't sitting quietly in a cell. She was spreading poison through friends, through family, through anyone gullible enough to listen. The third call was worse. A man's voice, low and threatening, "Drop the charges, or you won't make it to the courthouse." I hung up, locked every door, and sat in my kitchen with my crimson jacket still on. Like armor, the pearl earrings glinted under the lamp. My reflection in the window looked tired, but defiant. The next morning, the fallout hit the neighborhood. "Margaret, honey, are you all right?" My neighbor, Mrs. Rose, knocked at my door, eyes wide with concern. I saw some posts online. Ugly things. "They're saying you've lost your mind. That you're making everything up." Posts. Plural. I opened my laptop and logged into Facebook. My breath caught. There it was, a fake account with Vanessa's wedding photo as the profile picture. Spewing lies in every local group. "My poor mother is senile. She thinks we stole from her. Please, if you see her wandering the streets, call me. She's confused and needs professional care." Hundreds of comments, some sympathetic, some cruel. One picture, of me at the supermarket last week, looking distracted in the cereal aisle. They'd captioned it, "Proof she's not all there anymore." My blood boiled. This wasn't just slander, it was strategy. Vanessa was trying to build a case in the court of public opinion. To paint me as delusional before the real trial even began. Well, two could play that game. I called Attorney Harris. "They've started a smear campaign." His sigh was heavy but unsurprised. "Of course they have. It's a common tactic, discredit the victim to weaken testimony. But don't worry, Ms. Brooks. We'll turn their lies into evidence of further defamation. For now, document everything. Screenshots, voicemails, letters. Don't delete a thing." "Believe me," I said, snapping a screenshot of Vanessa's latest post. "I wouldn't dream of it." Because the very next day, a letter slid under my front door that nearly shattered me, and almost made me give up the fight entirely. The letter arrived without a stamp, without an envelope, just a single sheet of paper shoved under my front door sometime between dawn and dread. I found it on the doormat as I stepped into the hallway with my morning coffee. The handwriting was jagged, like each word had been carved instead of written. "You're a failed mother. Your own daughter hates you so much she'd rather see you dead. Think about that. Think about why." I sank into the armchair, the letter trembling in my hands. For a second, the words wrapped around my chest like chains. Failed mother. The phrase echoed in the room louder than any insult screamed over the phone. Memories hit me in waves. Grace? No. Vanessa, as a child clutching my hand on the first day of school. Vanessa in her golden quinceañera dress, whispering, "Thank you, Mom, you're the best in the world." The night she graduated college and promised me I'd never suffer again. Had it all been a lie? Or had I poured so much love into her that I blinded myself to the cracks forming underneath? Tears blurred the ink until the words bled into one another. For the first time since I'd stood tall in that crimson suit, I wondered if maybe I had done something wrong, if maybe I really was to blame for raising a daughter who saw me as disposable. The phone rang again. Another blocked number. My hand hovered, then dropped. I couldn't take another voice telling me what a fool I'd been. Instead, I stumbled to my bedroom and pulled open the drawer of the small chest where I kept my most precious keepsakes. Inside, wrapped in fading tissue paper, was a letter in a different hand, my mother's. The ink was faded, the paper creased, but her voice came alive in every line. Margaret, Eleanor, if you're reading this, it's because I am gone. But hear me, you are stronger than you think. Don't let anyone, even your own child, strip away your dignity. True love never destroys, never humiliates, never steals. You deserve respect, and if someone can't give you that, blood or not, they don't deserve you. My hands shook for a new reason now, not despair, but recognition. My mother's voice reached across time, shoving me back to my feet. I folded Vanessa's cruel letter in half, shoved it into a separate envelope, and wrote across the front, evidence. Then I pressed my mother's letter to my chest like a shield. Thank you, Mom, I whispered into the quiet house. I hear you, and I won't let you down. Because the very next call I made wasn't to Attorney Harris, it was to the foundation my mother once dreamed of. The one that would turn my pain into power. The number was written on a flyer tucked inside my church bulletin months ago, the Golden Hope Foundation. A nonprofit for abandoned and mistreated seniors. Back then, I had glanced at it and thought, how sad for those poor souls. Now I realized, I was one of them. When the line connected, a warm voice answered, Golden Hope Foundation, this is Marjorie. I cleared my throat. My name is Eleanor Brooks. I think I need your help. And maybe, in time, I can help you too. Marjorie didn't rush me. She just listened as I poured out everything, the betrayal, the forged papers, the fake medical reports, the slander online. My words shook, but her silence was steady. When I finished, she said something that stuck like nails in the wood of my heart. Eleanor, you're not a victim, you're a survivor. And survivors have something victims don't. Choices. Let us help you choose what comes next. For the first time in weeks, I felt something stir in me that wasn't bitterness. It was possibility. After the call, I dialed Attorney Harris. Add another condition to the lawsuit, I said firmly. He sounded curious. Which is? If we settle, Vanessa and Sebastian get nothing, not a penny. My assets, when I'm gone, will go to Golden Hope. They'll never again confuse my love with their entitlement. A pause, then a chuckle. Ms. Brooks, you're turning revenge into philanthropy. I admire that. It's not revenge, I corrected him, though the smile tugging at my lips betrayed me. It's insurance, the kind they'll never be able to cash in on. That afternoon, I packed a box of old photographs. I sat at the kitchen table sorting them, me at 20 with calloused hands. Holding baby Vanessa, birthdays with paper crowns and cheap cakes, her graduation. The golden tassel glinting under the sun. Memories that once tasted sweet now burned bitter. Still, I chose to save them. Because love had been real. Even if gratitude never was. Just as I slipped the last photo into the box, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mom? It was Vanessa's voice. Hoarse. Broken. Please, I know you hate me. But don't ruin me. Don't let them take everything. Her plea hung in the air, sticky with desperation. I closed my eyes. I remembered her laugh in the recording, the laugh that said my life was a punchline. When I opened my eyes again, my voice was steel. Vanessa, I'm not ruining you. I'm just making sure you finally face the ruin you built for yourself. And then, for the first time, I hung up on my daughter. But the very next morning, when Vanessa's lawyer showed up at my door with an offer, I realized this battle wasn't ending, it was only changing shape. The knock came at 9 a.m. sharp. I opened the door expecting a neighbor. Maybe Mrs. Rose with her casserole diplomacy. Instead, I found a man in a pinstripe suit. Briefcase gleaming, smile polished like a salesman at a county fair. Good morning, Ms. Brooks, he said smoothly. I'm Alan Green, counsel for your daughter, Vanessa, and her husband. Sebastian, may I come in? I crossed my arms. If this is about cookies or salvation, you've got the wrong house. If it's about my daughter, keep talking on the porch. He chuckled, though his eyes flickered with irritation. Very well, I'll keep this brief. My clients are prepared to offer you a settlement. Full repayment of the funds withdrawn, plus $5,000 for your inconvenience, if you agree to drop all criminal charges immediately. I stared at him. 5,000? For my dignity, my sanity, and 30 years of sweat poured into that house? His smile tightened. Ms. Brooks, trials are messy. They drag reputations through mud. Even yours. Is that what you want at your age? Wouldn't it be easier to resolve this quietly? With some extra money in your account? I stepped closer, lowering my voice until even the porch plants leaned in to listen. Tell Vanessa this. No amount of hush money can buy back a mother's trust. She wanted to treat me like an old rug she could roll up and toss away. Well, now she gets to sweep her own dirt in front of a judge. Green shifted his briefcase nervously. If you pursue this, your daughter's future will be destroyed. I tilted my head. No, Mr. Green, she destroyed her future the moment she planned mine. For once, he didn't have a comeback. He simply snapped the latch on his briefcase and muttered, I'll relay your sentiments. As he descended the porch steps, Mrs. Rose next door peeked from her blinds. By dinner, I knew the whole neighborhood would be buzzing about Eleanor throwing out a lawyer like he was selling vacuum cleaners. Good, let them buzz. I closed the door and leaned against it, heart racing but steady. My refusal wasn't just about Vanessa anymore. It was about every senior who'd been tricked, dismissed, or bullied by the very children they raised. I picked up my phone and called Attorney Harris. They tried to bribe me with $5,000. He whistled. That's laughable. We'll add it to the file as evidence of attempted coercion. Well done, Ms. Brooks. I smiled, not because I felt victorious, but because for once, I wasn't the one being played. But that night, when the threats escalated from phone calls to something far darker, I realized Vanessa and Sebastian weren't going to stop until they broke me, or until I broke them first. That night, the darkness outside my windows felt heavier than usual, like it was leaning against the glass. Waiting, I triple-checked the locks, slid the chain across the front door, and told myself I was being cautious, not paranoid. At 1:13 a.m., the phone rang again. Another blocked number. I didn't answer. Seconds later, a text appeared. You think you've won? You haven't seen anything yet. Accidents happen to old women all the time. My stomach clenched. I called Attorney Harris immediately, even though it was the middle of the night. To my surprise, he picked up on the second ring, voice groggy but alert. Ms. Brooks, what's wrong? I read the message aloud. Silence. Then his voice sharpened. That's not just harassment, that's a direct threat. Screenshot it, save it, and call the police. Tonight. By the time officers arrived, my nerves were frayed down to threads. They took the phone, documented the message, and promised to increase patrols near my street. One officer, younger than Vanessa, looked at me with something that almost resembled pity. Ma'am, he said, sometimes kids don't realize how far they've gone until the law puts a mirror in front of them. Stay strong. After they left, I sat in the kitchen with the lights blazing, clutching a mug of cold tea. My mother's letter lay on the table beside me. The ink faded but her words blazing louder than the fear in my chest. True love never destroys. You deserve dignity. Around 3 a.m., I heard the sound. A sharp crack against the side of the house. My breath froze. I crept to the window and peeked out. There, lying on the lawn, was a brick wrapped in paper. My hands shook as I picked it up. Scrawled across the note in thick black marker. Drop the charges, or next time it goes through the window. I laughed then, not a pretty laugh. Not a kind one, but the kind that comes when fear finally tips over into fury. Because what they didn't know was that every threat, every call, every brick, was another nail in the coffin of their case. I set the brick gently on the table beside my mother's letter and whispered into the empty house. Vanessa, Sebastian, you've just made my victory inevitable. But little did I know, The biggest blow wasn't going to come from outside my house, it was going to arrive in the courtroom. In the form of someone I never expected to see again. The day of the preliminary hearing. The courthouse smelled of disinfectant and nerves. My crimson suit was freshly pressed. My pearls polished. I walked in with Attorney Harris at my side, feeling less like prey and more like a witness to my own rebirth. Vanessa and Sebastian sat at the defendant's table, their lawyer Mr. Green whispering urgently to them. Vanessa's face was pale, her hair unkempt, as if even the mirror had stopped cooperating. Sebastian tried to sit tall, but his cufflinks gleamed louder than his courage. The judge entered, and everyone rose. My heart thudded against my ribs. Steady, deliberate, this was the moment their lies would start unraveling. State versus Vanessa Brooks and Sebastian Clark. The clerk announced. Harris stood. Your Honor, we have extensive evidence of fraud, forgery, and attempted elder abuse, including. He laid out the files one by one, each paper sounding like a hammer on the wooden table. Forged documents, bank statements, screenshots of threats. The voice memo of Vanessa plotting my exile played through the courtroom speakers. Gasps rippled through the benches. But then, just as I began to feel the ground tilt in my favor, the defense called their first witness. The door opened, and in walked Richard Baker. My breath caught. Richard, the man who had vanished from my life the moment I told him I was pregnant at 18. The man who left me to raise Vanessa alone. Now, 35 years later, here he was, clean suit, polished shoes, his jaw set like granite. Mr. Baker, the defense attorney began smoothly. Can you tell the court about Ms. Eleanor Brooks's mental state during the time you knew her? Richard's eyes flicked toward me, then away. Yes, she was always unstable, overly dramatic, quick to anger. I wouldn't be surprised if her daughter was concerned about her capacity to live alone. My chest burned. Unstable? Quick to anger? This from the man who abandoned me to diapers and debt? Vanessa smirked, her eyes flashing with triumph. She had dug up my past like a weapon, parading the ghost of a man who had never lifted a finger to help. Now trying to bury me with lies. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. My knees wobbled. For a second, I thought I might collapse. But then, I remembered the letter in my purse. My mother's words, don't let anyone, not even your own daughter, strip away your dignity. I straightened my spine. If Richard thought he could waltz back into my life and paint me as broken, he was about to learn that the girl he abandoned was gone, and the woman who replaced her was unbreakable. Because when it was my turn to take the stand, I wasn't just going to defend myself, I was going to expose every lie Richard, Vanessa, and Sebastian had ever told. When the judge called my name, I rose, heels clicking like drumbeats on the courtroom floor. My crimson suit caught the light. The pearl earrings brushed my neck with every step. I swore under oath, took my seat, and let the silence wrap around me. Attorney Harris began. Ms. Brooks, you've heard Mr. Richard Baker testify about your so-called instability. Would you care to respond? I turned to face Richard, my past dressed in a discount suit, and let my voice fill the room. Yes, Your Honor. Richard Baker abandoned me when I was 18 years old and pregnant with our daughter. He left me with nothing but unpaid bills and broken promises. For 35 years, he hasn't sent a letter, a dollar, or even a birthday card. He doesn't know who I am today. He doesn't know the sacrifices I made to raise our daughter. So forgive me if I don't take his sudden interest in my mental state as anything other than convenient fiction. The gallery buzzed. Even the judge's eyebrows lifted a fraction. I leaned forward. And let's be clear, this man is not here because he cares about me. He's here because my daughter dug him up like a rusty shovel and handed him a script. If abandonment makes you an expert, then maybe he qualifies. Otherwise, he's just another liar trying to rewrite my life. Richard flushed, his jaw tightening. Vanessa shot daggers at me from the defense table, but I didn't look her way. Harris gave a small nod. Thank you, Ms. Brooks. Now, would you please tell the court what you discovered regarding your daughter and her husband? I lifted my phone, holding it like a sword. This, I said, pressing play. Vanessa's voice filled the courtroom once again. Ricardo, I can't take having my mother in this house anymore. She's a nuisance. I found a place that's $800 a month. Monica says she can transfer the house to our name without her realizing." The laughter that followed, her laughter, cut through the air like broken glass. The room fell into stunned silence. I let the message end. Then I looked directly at the judge. That is the voice of my daughter, plotting to steal my house and have me locked away. And yet I am the one being called unstable. The judge rapped his gavel to quiet the murmurs rippling through the gallery. Harris gestured for me to continue. So I did. I told them about the forged bank letter, the fraudulent withdrawals, the fake medical evaluations. I recounted every insult disguised as care, every manipulation wrapped in concern, every brick thrown at my dignity. By the time I finished, my voice trembled, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of truth. The judge leaned back in his chair. "Thank you, Ms. Brooks. You may step down." As I walked back to my seat, Richard refused to meet my eyes. Vanessa's smirk had collapsed into something smaller, uglier, fear. But just when I thought the worst was behind me, Sebastian stood up to testify, and the lie he told next was the cruelest of them all. Sebastian rose from the defendant's table like a man auditioning for sainthood. His cuffs gleamed, his tie was knotted with military precision, and his expression, his expression, was pure pity. Pity for me. He raised his right hand, swore the oath, and settled into the witness chair with the gravity of someone about to rewrite the Bible. "Mr. Clark," Green began, oozing confidence, "could you describe your relationship with your mother-in-law, Ms. Eleanor Brooks?" Sebastian folded his hands, sighing as if the weight of the world pressed on his broad shoulders. "Yes, Your Honor. From the day I met Eleanor, I've tried to treat her like family. But it hasn't been easy. She's paranoid, forgetful, and—" Objection. Harris' voice cut through the courtroom like a razor. "Speculation." The judge narrowed his eyes. Sustained. "Stick to facts, Mr. Clark." Sebastian nodded, adopting his humble servant face. "Of course. The facts are, Eleanor has repeatedly accused us of things that never happened. She's confused dates, misplaced her money, even claimed we insulted her when we were just trying to help. We were concerned about her health. That's why we sought professional evaluations. Not to harm her, but to protect her." Protect me. That word soured in my mouth. Then came the dagger. Sebastian leaned forward, his voice dropping to a sorrowful murmur. "In fact, just last year, Eleanor told me, privately, that sometimes she wished she didn't have to go on living. That life had become too heavy. I believe she was suicidal. We were terrified she'd harm herself if left alone." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. My blood turned to ice. "That," I said aloud, standing before Harris could stop me, "is a filthy lie." The judge banged the gavel. "Ms. Brooks, please wait until your attorney has the floor." I sat back down, fists trembling in my lap. Suicidal? He was painting me not just as incompetent, but unstable enough to justify locking me away forever. Vanessa dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, playing the grieving daughter to perfection. I almost admired the performance, if it hadn't been written in poison. Harris stood, calm as a surgeon. "Mr. Clark, you're claiming my client admitted to being suicidal. Did you document this? Any notes? Reports? Witnesses?" Sebastian hesitated. "No, it was a private conversation." Harris pounced. "Convenient. Because I have a professional evaluation conducted just last week by Dr. Morales, a certified geriatric specialist, which declares Ms. Brooks mentally sound, emotionally stable, and not at risk of self-harm. So unless you have something stronger than crocodile tears, your testimony is not only irrelevant, it borders on perjury." The judge gave Sebastian a long, hard look. He shifted uncomfortably, the performance mask slipping. I exhaled, steady again. Because Sebastian had just made a fatal mistake, he thought he could invent lies without realizing I had built my defense on nothing but truth. And when Harris unveiled the next piece of evidence, straight from Monica's trembling hands, it was the blow that shattered their entire defense once and for all. Attorney Harris adjusted his glasses, his voice steady but carrying a weight that silenced the courtroom. "Your Honor, the defense claims they acted out of love, Out of concern that my client was unstable, forgetful, even suicidal. But concern doesn't forge signatures. Concern doesn't falsify medical reports. Concern doesn't transfer property behind someone's back. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder thick with papers. This, Your Honor, is a sworn deposition, signed and notarized by Monica Reed, cousin to the defendant, and clerk at the county office. She has confessed to participating in this scheme, and she has provided documentation. He opened the folder, laying out copies of forged deeds, fake evaluations, and bank forms. The courtroom fell into a hush so thick I could hear Vanessa's sharp inhale. Here, Harris continued, holding up a document for the judge to see, is the property transfer request Monica was preparing. Eleanor Brooks's signature, supposedly authentic, appears at the bottom. But under expert analysis, it was determined to be forged. Monica herself admits she signed this under pressure from Vanessa Brooks. The judge leaned forward, adjusting his spectacles. Vanessa's face drained of color. Her tissue crumpled uselessly in her hand. And here, Harris added, tapping another page, are the fraudulent medical reports declaring Ms. Brooks incompetent. These, too, were coordinated with Monica's assistance. And she has identified Grace's husband, Sebastian Clark, as the one who delivered bribes to ensure cooperation. Gasps filled the gallery. A murmur ran across the benches like wildfire. The judge's gavel slammed once. Order in the court. I sat, heart-hammering, watching my daughter's mask crack. Vanessa looked at Sebastian, her eyes wide with something I hadn't seen before, not arrogance. Not coldness, fear. Sebastian clenched his jaw, whispering furiously to Green. The lawyer raised his hands in protest. But the evidence lay sprawled across the table like a trap snapping shut. Mr. Green, the judge said sharply, your clients are facing documented evidence of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Unless you have something miraculous to present, their credibility is collapsing rapidly. Vanessa's hand shot up. Your Honor, please, it wasn't me. It was Monica. She tricked me. I never wanted any of this. Her voice cracked. Crocodile tears spilled down her cheeks. But Harris wasn't finished. With the court's permission, I'd like to play one final recording. A conversation between Ms. Brooks and Monica Reed, captured legally and submitted as evidence. He pressed play. Monica's trembling voice filled the courtroom speakers. Yes, I helped Grace. She begged me. She said her mother was losing her mind and that she needed my help to transfer the house. She told me it was urgent. That they couldn't wait. I signed the papers, but I knew it was wrong. The recording ended. The courtroom exploded with whispers. Vanessa buried her face in her hands. Sebastian glared at the floor, fists clenched. And for the first time in months, I felt the weight on my chest begin to lift. But victory wasn't mine yet, because what happened next turned the trial into a battlefield where blood ties meant nothing. And survival demanded everything. The judge tapped his gavel again, his patience thinning. Ms. Brooks, Mr. Clark, this deposition and recording place you at the center of a deliberate fraud against your own mother. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Vanessa's shoulders shook as she tried to summon a tearful voice. Your Honor, I was manipulated. Monica pressured me into this. She said it was the only way to protect my mom. I never meant to hurt her. Her words tumbled over each other like broken glass. But Sebastian wasn't about to drown with her. He shot to his feet. That's a lie. Vanessa was the one who pushed everything. She said her mom was losing it. She said the house was wasted on an old woman. I just went along because I didn't want to lose my marriage. The courtroom gasped as the two of them turned on each other like starving dogs fighting over scraps. Don't you dare blame me, Vanessa screamed, slamming her hand against the table. You're the one who bribed the doctors. You're the one who told Monica to forge the signatures. That's because you begged me to. Sebastian shot back, his face red with fury. You said your mother's house was the answer to all our debts. Don't act innocent now. The judge's gavel cracked down like thunder. Enough. This is a courtroom, not a playground. But the damage was done. Their united front had shattered into pieces. And every word of blame was another nail in their coffin. Attorney Harris leaned close to me, whispering with a faint smile, "Let them tear each other apart. The more they speak, the deeper they dig." I sat very still, watching the daughter I had once cradled in my arms unravel before me. Her mascara streaked down her face. Her voice cracked from rage and panic. Sebastian's tie was crooked now, his polished composure gone. And then, like poison slipping into the bloodstream, Richard stood up again. "Your Honor," he said, his voice booming, "this family has always been troubled. I left because Eleanor was impossible to live with. And now you see her daughter is the same. Clearly, this entire mess comes from Eleanor's instability." He pointed straight at me. "She poisoned Grace against me years ago. And now she pretends to be the victim. Don't let her lies fool you. She's manipulating all of us." The gallery erupted again. My stomach churned, but my hands stayed steady. Because I knew something Richard didn't. Harris had saved one final piece of evidence, the one that would silence him forever. And when that evidence surfaced, it didn't just destroy Richard's testimony, it exposed a secret he had buried for decades. Attorney Harris rose slowly, the way a lion stretches before the pounce. His voice was calm, measured, but it carried the sharp edge of a blade. "Your Honor," he said, "before this court entertains further speculation from Mr. Richard Baker, I'd like to submit into evidence Exhibit 47. He lifted a sealed envelope and handed it to the bailiff. The papers were passed to the judge, who adjusted his glasses and began to read. Richard stiffened. "What is this?" Harris' smile was razor thin. "Exhibit 47 is a sworn affidavit from the Social Security Office. Coupled with a financial report, it proves that Mr. Baker has been drawing survivor benefits for decades under the claim that Ms. Brooks was deceased." The gallery gasped. My breath caught in my throat. "Deceased?" the judge repeated, his tone heavy with disbelief. Harris nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. Richard Baker has been collecting fraudulent payments by reporting Eleanor Brooks as dead since the early 1990s. While he abandoned her and their child, he pocketed money that should never have been his." All eyes swung to Richard. His face turned chalk white, sweat blooming on his forehead. That's ridiculous," he stammered. "Those records are wrong. It must be a mistake." But Harris wasn't done. He pulled out a second document, crisp and damning. "In addition, Your Honor, we have notarized statements from two former co-workers of Mr. Baker. Both testify that Richard bragged about outsmarting the system and claimed he'd been receiving money every month thanks to paperwork no one checked closely." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Even the jurors leaned forward, their skepticism plain. The judge's gavel cracked like a gunshot. "Order." He turned to Richard, eyes sharp as steel. "Mr. Baker, do you deny these sworn documents and testimonies?" Richard opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He looked at Vanessa, then at Sebastian, but both avoided his gaze. His knees wobbled, his mask slipping completely. "Enough," the judge declared. "This court will not tolerate perjury or fraud." He handed the documents to the clerk. "Exhibit 47 is admitted into evidence." I sat there, my heart pounding, watching the man who had walked out on me decades ago crumble under the weight of his own lies. For years, he had vanished into the shadows, leaving me to carry the burdens alone. And now, under the harsh light of justice, his secrets were dragged into the open for everyone to see. Vanessa buried her face in her hands, sobbing, not for me, not for justice, but because the man she thought would save her had just destroyed what little credibility she had left. And as Richard's downfall echoed through the courtroom, I realized the tables had finally turned, but the real test was yet to come. Because the judge was about to deliver a ruling that could either set me free or bind me forever. The courtroom's air had grown heavy, as though every lie, every betrayal, had thickened it into something nearly unbreathable. The judge set down the papers with deliberate calm and fixed Richard with a stare that could cut marble. "Mr. Baker," he said, voice like thunder, "you've not only undermined your own testimony, but you've revealed yourself as a man who built his life on deception. Your credibility is destroyed. You may step down." Richard's legs buckled as he returned to his seat. His once proud shoulders slumped. Vanessa glanced at him with a mixture of rage and horror. like a drowning woman realizing the lifeboat she clung to was riddled with holes. The judge then turned his gaze toward Vanessa and Sebastian. This court is faced with compelling evidence, voice recordings, forged documents, fraudulent medical evaluations, sworn confessions, and now, testimony revealing financial deception spanning decades. It is clear this was not concern for Ms. Brooks. It was conspiracy for personal gain. The words hit me like a rush of oxygen. My fingers gripped the wooden bench. Not out of fear this time, but disbelief that justice was finally within reach. However, the judge continued, and my stomach dipped. The defense has requested that before any ruling is finalized, Ms. Brooks undergo an independent, court-appointed psychological evaluation. A murmur swept through the gallery. My chest tightened. Another test? Another chance for them to question my mind, my clarity, my dignity? Vanessa's tear-streaked face lifted with sudden hope. Yes, Your Honor. Please, she needs help. She's confused, unstable. We only wanted what was best for her. I wanted to scream, but Attorney Harris placed a steady hand on my arm. His calm steadied me like an anchor in a storm. Your Honor, he said firmly, my client has already undergone evaluation by Dr. Morales, a board-certified geriatric specialist. His report, entered into evidence, declares Ms. Brooks entirely competent. This request is nothing but a stalling tactic. The judge rubbed his temple. Mr. Harris, the law requires impartiality. While I do not doubt Dr. Morales' credentials, a neutral evaluation is warranted given the seriousness of the accusations. Vanessa's lips curled in a faint, triumphant smile. Sebastian straightened in his seat, smugness flickering back into his eyes. I swallowed hard. Another test meant another chance for them to twist the narrative, to plant doubt where none should exist. Harris leaned close and whispered, "Don't be afraid, this is their last card. And it's weak. You'll pass it, and when you do, it will bury them completely." I nodded, drawing strength from his certainty. Still, my pulse thudded in my ears. Another trial, another hoop to jump through, just to prove I was worthy of my own life. The judge banged the gavel. The court orders a full, independent evaluation of Ms. Eleanor Brooks within the next 7 days. Until then, this court is adjourned. The gavel's echo rang in my bones. Vanessa and Sebastian whispered furiously to each other, their relief obvious. Richard slumped like a man already sentenced. And I, though exhausted, stood tall. Because if they wanted me tested, they would get more than they bargained for. What they didn't know was that I had one last weapon up my sleeve, and it would turn their so-called test into the very proof of their downfall. 7 days. That was all I had before the court-appointed evaluation, a test designed, in their minds, to prove I was weak, confused, and incapable of living on my own. 7 days for my daughter and her husband to whisper poison into the right ears. To spin stories that painted me as an unhinged old woman clinging to fantasies. But 7 days was also enough time for me to prepare. Attorney Harris sat across from me at his office desk, tapping his pen thoughtfully. Eleanor, I won't lie. They'll try every trick, misleading questions, exaggerated reports, subtle gaslighting, but the beauty of truth is that it holds up under scrutiny. You've lived a life of sacrifice, clarity, and resilience. That's not something a 30-minute session can erase. I nodded, though my hands trembled slightly. I've fought too hard to lose now. He smiled. Good, because I've arranged something they won't expect. Dr. Morales, the same doctor who evaluated you last month, has agreed to be present as an observer. He'll ensure their methods remain ethical. A flicker of relief warmed me. So they won't be able to twist the results? Not without being caught, Harris assured, and if they try, we'll have evidence. For the first time since this nightmare began, I allowed myself to exhale. The day of the evaluation arrived like a storm. The court-appointed psychiatrist, Dr. Lang, was a tall, severe man with sharp spectacles and a clipboard he seemed to guard like scripture. He greeted me with polite detachment, not warmth. Mrs. Brooks, he said, ushering me into a sterile office. This evaluation will be thorough. Please answer honestly. If you attempt to mislead me, it will reflect poorly in my report. Behind him, Dr. Morales sat quietly, arms folded, eyes steady, a silent guardian. The test began simply enough. Questions about my name, the date, the current president. I answered without hesitation. Then came memory tests, problem-solving puzzles, recounting details from short stories. My mind, sharpened by years of surviving hardship, held firm. But then the questions shifted. Subtle traps, disguised as concern. Do you ever feel unsafe in your own home? Dr. Lang asked, pen hovering. I smiled coldly. Yes, because my daughter and her husband forged documents to steal it from me. That would make anyone unsafe. Wouldn't you agree? His pen hesitated. Morales gave a small approving nod. Later, have you ever wished your life would end? I met his eyes squarely. Never. My life is my own. And I intend to live it fully. What I don't wish for is to be locked in a facility because of someone else's greed. The words rang with conviction. Dr. Lang scribbled something, his expression unreadable. Hours passed, the tests dragging on. Finally, he set his pen down. That concludes the evaluation. My body sagged with relief. I had held my ground. But what I didn't know, what none of us knew, was that Sebastian had followed me. Lurking in the hallway outside. And when I stepped out of that office, his lips curled into a predator's grin. Because he had one more card to play. The trap Sebastian laid that day wasn't in the courtroom, it was waiting for me in the shadows. And it nearly cost me everything. The fluorescent lights of the clinic buzzed faintly as I stepped into the hallway. Drained but proud of how I had stood my ground, Dr. Morales gave me a discreet thumbs up, a quiet assurance that I had done well. Relief spread through me like sunlight after a storm. But then, Sebastian. He was leaning against the wall near the exit, arms crossed, smile sharp enough to slice. His presence there was no accident. Well, he drawled, straightening. How'd it go, Mom? Did you convince them you're not losing it? I froze. You have no right to be here. Oh, but I do. He slipped a phone out of his pocket and held it up. The screen already recording. See, courts love evidence. And I've got just the thing. Before I could react, he lowered his voice and hissed, if you'd just signed the house over. None of this would have happened. But you're stubborn. You've always been stubborn. And stubborn old women end up alone, or worse. My blood turned cold. Say that again, I whispered, my hands trembling, not with fear, but with rage. He leaned in, his cologne sharp, his words venom. You heard me. The home is ready. We can still make this easy. One phone call, and you disappear into St. Francis before next week. No court, no scandal. You'll have a warm bed and 3 meals a day. Or, you keep fighting. And accidents happen. Old women fall. Old women forget to turn off the stove. Old women don't last long. The phone in his hand glowed red. He thought he was catching me, recording me snapping, screaming, proving I was unstable. Instead, I smiled, slowly, coldly. Thank you, Sebastian, I said clearly, my voice steady. That's exactly what I needed you to say. I reached into my purse and pulled out my own phone. Its small red light blinked, recording every venomous syllable he had just spewed. For the first time, Sebastian's smirk faltered. You set me up. He stammered. No, I replied, sliding my phone back into my bag. You set yourself up. I just pressed record. Dr. Morales stepped into the hallway then. Having witnessed the exchange, his eyes widened briefly, then hardened with understanding. Mr. Clark, Morales said sternly, I heard everything. This will go into my report. Sebastian's face drained of color. He opened his mouth, closed it again, then stormed out of the clinic, his footsteps echoing like thunder. I stood there, shaken but victorious. My enemies thought they were writing my downfall. Instead, they had written their own confession. And when we brought Sebastian's threat into court, the final mask fell, and the judge's decision would change everything. The next morning, the courtroom buzzed louder than ever. Word had already spread that new evidence was about to surface, and the gallery was packed with curious eyes, journalists scribbling notes, and even neighbors craning their necks to see the drama unfold. Vanessa sat stiffly beside Sebastian, who looked like he hadn't slept. His jaw was tight, his hands clasped so hard the knuckles had turned white. Richard slumped in the back row, avoiding eye contact with everyone, his presence now more of a burden than a shield. Attorney Harris stood, calm but commanding. Your Honor, yesterday my client underwent the court-appointed evaluation. She performed flawlessly, and the neutral report, already submitted to your chambers, confirms her mental competence and emotional stability. But that's not all. He clicked a small remote. The speakers crackled, and then Sebastian's voice filled the courtroom. Old women fall. Old women forget to turn off the stove. Old women don't last long. The gallery gasped in horror. Someone in the back whispered, "Did he just threaten her life?" Sebastian's face turned scarlet. That's out of context. She provoked me. Harris lifted a brow. Out of context? Mr. Clark, those words were spoken directly after you offered to make this easy if Eleanor signed over her house. The full recording leaves no room for doubt. He gestured toward Dr. Morales, who stood to give his statement. I was present when Mr. Clark made those threats. He was attempting to intimidate Ms. Brooks, and he believed he was recording her in a negative light. Instead, she recorded him. This was no manipulation. This was the truth. The judge's gavel slammed once. Enough. His eyes bored into Sebastian. Do you deny making these statements? Sebastian swallowed hard, his voice breaking. I was angry. It was just words. Words that imply harm. The judge snapped. Words that prove intent. Vanessa buried her face in her hands. This can't be happening, she whispered. I sat straighter, my crimson suit glowing like defiance itself. For months they had called me unstable, paranoid, senile, and now, the mask had fallen, revealing the monsters beneath. The judge leaned forward, voice low and final. This court has heard enough. The conspiracies, the forgeries, the lies, and now outright threats. This is not care. This is criminal. Prepare yourselves for sentencing. But the sentencing didn't just seal their fate, it revealed one last twist that left the entire courtroom gasping for breath. The judge's words echoed like a church bell announcing the end of something holy. Vanessa's mascara-streaked face lifted. Trembling with desperation, Sebastian shook his head violently, muttering to himself, No, this isn't happening. The clerk handed the judge a final folder, something that had arrived that very morning. He skimmed it, his expression tightening. Before I deliver sentencing, the judge said, this court has received additional documentation from the IRS, forwarded at the request of Attorney Harris. It concerns both Mr. Sebastian Clark and Ms. Vanessa Brooks. The gallery leaned forward as one. My pulse quickened. The judge flipped a page. According to these records, the defendants have committed tax fraud for the past 3 years. Undisclosed income, hidden assets, falsified deductions. The total owed, including penalties and interest, exceeds $35,000. The gallery gasped. Vanessa clutched Sebastian's arm. You told me you handled the taxes, she shrieked. Sebastian hissed back. And you told me your mother would never fight back. The judge slammed the gavel. Quiet, his voice cut through the chaos. This court does not tolerate deceit, not toward this court, not toward the government, and certainly not toward your own mother. I sat frozen, both stunned and vindicated. The storm they had unleashed on me had now spun back, ripping through their lives with brutal precision. The judge's gaze turned to me. Ms. Brooks, do you wish to make a final statement before sentencing? I rose slowly, every eye in the room following me. My voice, though trembling at first, grew steady. For months, I was made to feel like I was losing my mind. They called me forgetful, paranoid, a burden. But the truth is, I paused, letting the silence stretch. The only thing I forgot was that I am stronger than the lies they told. I built my life brick by brick. I earned my dignity with every scar on my hands. And I will not let even my own blood strip it away. The gallery erupted into applause before the gavel restored order. The judge nodded solemnly. Thank you, Ms. Brooks. This court is ready to rule. Vanessa whimpered. Sebastian stared blankly at the floor. And when the gavel came down with the final verdict, it didn't just end their scheme, it reshaped the rest of my life in ways I never imagined. The judge's gavel struck, each rap heavy with finality. The air in the courtroom seemed to vibrate, every spectator holding their breath as the ruling unfolded. Vanessa Brooks and Sebastian Clark. The judge began, his voice a low rumble of authority. This court finds you guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery of legal documents, elder abuse, and attempted unlawful appropriation of property. Vanessa let out a strangled sob, her body collapsing against the defense table. Sebastian closed his eyes, jaw clenching, as though bracing for a blow he knew he couldn't dodge. The judge continued, furthermore, in light of the evidence presented, including direct threats recorded by the plaintiff, you are hereby sentenced to 5 years in state prison, with eligibility for parole after 3, provided restitution is paid. Gasps rippled across the room. The judge's gaze fell coldly upon them. You will also be required to repay Ms. Eleanor Brooks the full amount stolen, $8,750, plus damages in the amount of $15,000. Failure to comply will result in additional sentencing. The gallery erupted into whispers. Cameras clicked. Journalists scribbled furiously. I stood in stunned silence. For months, I had been treated like I was invisible, powerless, old, yet here, in this courtroom, the truth had turned the tide. The bailiff moved forward, cuffs in hand. Vanessa screamed, "No, please, I can't go to prison. Mom, say something, you're my mother." Her words sliced through me like a blade dulled by overuse, painful, but no longer deadly. I looked at her, my child, my betrayer, the little girl I once carried through rainstorms and soothed after nightmares, and I said quietly, "You stopped being my daughter when you started planning my destruction." Sebastian didn't struggle as the cuffs snapped around his wrists. He only muttered under his breath, "This isn't over." But deep down, we both knew it was. The judge banged the gavel one final time. Court adjourned. And just like that, the nightmare was over. The gallery rose in a wave of applause and murmurs of approval. Strangers patted my shoulder as I walked past. Harris leaned close, whispering, "You did it, Eleanor. You didn't just survive, you won." Outside the courthouse, the sun was blinding, hot on my face. Freedom had never tasted so sharp, so sweet. But even as the verdict freed me, I knew the true battle wasn't over. The battle was learning how to live again. Not as a victim, but as a woman who had reclaimed her life. The courthouse doors closed behind me with a heavy thud, but the weight on my chest was gone. I stood on the steps, sunlight spilling over me, the sound of reporters shouting questions fading into background noise. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe without fear pressing down on my lungs. Attorney Harris handed me a folder with the final paperwork. "Eleanor, you're free now. The house is yours. Your accounts are secure, and they won't see a cent of your assets again. This is the clean break you needed." I clutched the folder to my chest. "Free," I whispered, the word tasting strange, like honey I hadn't allowed myself in decades. But freedom came with silence. Silence where Sunday dinners used to be. Silence where my daughter's laughter should have lived. That night, sitting at my kitchen table, I let the stillness sink in. My home was safe, but it echoed with memories that felt like ghosts. I poured myself a glass of wine and stared at the family photos still hanging on the wall. Vanessa as a baby, her first day of school, her graduation cap tilted slightly to the side. Pictures that had once filled me with pride now felt like monuments to betrayal. My hand trembled as I reached for the frames. Slowly, one by one, I took them down, not to destroy them, but to put them away, into a chest where they would no longer haunt my walls. The past belonged in its place. My future demanded clean space. The next morning, I made a decision. I called the Golden Hope Foundation, the senior community center where I had once volunteered. "Do you still need part-time help?" I asked. The voice on the other end brightened. "Eleanor, we'd love to have you. In fact, we need someone to mentor some of the newer residents who've faced, well, situations like yours." My heart steadied. Maybe that was my purpose now, to turn my scars into maps for others. When I arrived at the center, the smell of fresh baked bread and coffee wrapped around me. Seniors gathered at tables, some painting, Others laughing over cards. No manipulation, no schemes, just people choosing joy. Nora, an old friend from my neighborhood, waved me over. Eleanor, darling, we saved you a seat. You're one of us now. And just like that, for the first time in decades, I wasn't a servant, or a victim, or even just a mother. I was Eleanor, a woman with a life still left to live. But before I could close this chapter fully, there was one last lesson to write, the lesson my story carries for every woman who's ever been betrayed by the very family she built. I sat at the Golden Hope Foundation that afternoon, watching sunlight spill across the floor where women my age painted canvases with bold strokes of color. Their laughter rose above the quiet strum of a guitar in the corner. And for the first time in years, I felt something powerful, peace. Yet inside me, I knew my story couldn't just end with relief. It had to carry meaning. Because what good was surviving betrayal if I didn't turn it into a lantern for others walking through the same darkness? I stood, cleared my throat, and the room quieted. Faces turned toward me, some curious, some already knowing my story from whispers that had spread through the community. I lost my daughter, I began softly, not to death, but to greed. She and her husband tried to take my home, my freedom, my dignity. For months, I thought maybe I was crazy. Maybe I was a burden. But I learned something through the pain, something I need every one of you to hear. The room leaned in. Family is love, not ownership. Family is respect, not manipulation. And blood alone does not earn anyone the right to your soul, your home, or your peace. An older man near the window wiped his eyes. A woman with trembling hands nodded so hard her earrings shook. I continued, voice steadier now. If someone, even your child, treats you like property to be claimed, you have every right to say no. You have every right to fight. And you are not weak for defending yourself. You are strong, stronger than they will ever understand. Applause broke out, soft at first, then thunderous. My chest swelled, not with pride, but with the deep relief of finally speaking the truth out loud. Later, as I walked home beneath a sky bruised with sunset, I thought about all the nights I had prayed for my daughter to love me the way I loved her. That love had turned into chains. But now, I was free, not because she gave me freedom, but because I took it back. My lesson was simple, but it was everything. Love should never cost you your dignity. Respect is not optional, it is the foundation of family. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away, even from the ones you birthed, if they choose betrayal over love. I reached my door, unlocked it, and stepped into my quiet, safe home. The house was mine again, not just legally, but spiritually, and so was my life. That night, as I lay in bed, I whispered to the shadows, I am free, and I will never be caged again. For every woman listening, do not mistake sacrifice for obligation. Do not let anyone, even those you raised, convince you that love means surrendering your worth. You deserve peace, you deserve respect, and if someone tries to steal that from you, fight. Because your life belongs only to you.